I'm always really apprehensive to call myself a minimalist on YouTube because I don't want you to expect someone who has only 33 items in their wardrobe or who has no furniture. That's definitely not me. I love making my space feel homely and cozy, so I definitely have some things here purely to create a vibe. But that being said, I love decluttering. If my space is tidy and clean, it helps me to feel more mindful and calm. So I have a weekly Sunday cleaning routine which I'm religious about, but I also love having a big declutter every now and again, and I feel like with the new year around the corner, now's the perfect time to do that. I want to go into the new year feeling refreshed and reset. So I'm not going to lie to you guys, I live in a small flat, which makes it so much easier to declutter. I know, for example, my mum gets really overwhelmed by the idea of decluttering because when you've got a house, it just feels so much more daunting. But I feel like all you have to do is break it down one room at a time and then maybe do one room a day. So I'm going to have a big declutter over the next 7 days, and I really hope my mum's watching this. On day 1, I started with the bedroom, and probably the most daunting task, my wardrobe. I try not to buy clothes too often, but it's surprising how it always feels like clothes just have this way of reproducing and causing so much clutter. A lot of people use the Marie Kondo method to declutter, which involves going through each item and asking if it sparks joy. But I found that this was a draining process, and I would find reasons for why something sparked joy. So instead I have my own method called the audit method. It basically involves taking some time out from both buying and decluttering to basically reflect and audit what you already wear. I like to think about what I wear the most often, what type of fit I like, what colours I reach for, what makes me feel good, what I find comfortable, and what clothes actually fit me well. Then when it comes to decluttering, I already have a good idea of what I want to get rid of. I originally did this back in spring, and I feel like that process really helped me to create a wardrobe I actually use. So this time round, I didn't actually have as many items to get rid of as I usually do. I decluttered my shoes, which I forgot to do during my spring clean. I actually find I hold on to shoes a lot longer than I do for clothes. I got rid of any trainers that I no longer wear and heels which I hate wearing, even if they do look good. Next up were my bedside tables. I wanted this area, especially the visible parts, to be items that I use before bed or first thing in the morning, like my alarm clock, my journal, and my hand moisturiser. I also went through the drawer, which is my messy drawer, and I found so many random things in here like old phone cases, wire, and paper clutter. I put any important documents and invoices in a folder in this drawer and then threw away anything that was no longer relevant to me. I also have greeting cards in here. Now, I know most minimalists wouldn't keep cards, but I love sentiment. When my grandmother passed away, I was so grateful that I still had a birthday card from her. I don't keep all of my cards, only those with really lovely messages, and I actually do read through them every now and again. I know most people would frown upon keeping greeting cards like this, but I think with everything, including minimalism, you have to do what's right for you. So this drawer is both sentimental and functional. I often throw anything under the bed in my desperate attempt to get rid of visual clutter. So I removed everything from under the bed and I got rid of anything that I didn't need. In an ideal world, I'd have nothing under the bed, but we are quite limited on space. Instead, I decided to at least reduce the amount of items that collected dust. So I put some items in a bag to place under the bed, and then some wires and cables in a box to keep under the bed. I also tidied the tops of my drawers. To be honest, I only really like having items that I need daily access to out, such as perfumes and moisturisers, but then I also have special items here such as my dream board. I think this is also the perfect time to declutter your handbag if you use one daily. As bedrooms are where we sleep, I think it's a really nice area to keep clean and tidy. It's a place where we should feel the most calm and relaxed, and a place where we can escape to feel mentally free. On day 2, I cleaned the living room, which I always try to keep tidy because it's where I spend most of my time. I started with visual items such as blankets, ornaments, candles, photo frames, and prints. I like having things out that make me happy, but there is a trade-off between having more things to collect dust, so I only keep items out if they're worth that extra cleaning time. I also use this time to rethink about what furniture I actually use. You might have furniture that you think you should have, but you don't actually use, and it could be taking up unnecessary space. We don't use these bar stools, and they end up just collecting piles of letters on the seats. So I've decided to sell them, especially as I use this space for yoga. I took photos of the bar stools and the rocking chair to put on Facebook Marketplace, and it would be really great if I could get some money back for it. Next up, TV units or shelves. You might need to declutter things like CDs and DVDs, which we hardly use now. Maybe now is the right time to let them go. My TV unit has mostly hobby-related items and tech items, so this might be the equivalent of your office space, and I'd probably recommend having a separate day for that altogether. I went through all of my art supplies and I got rid of any pens that have dried out and random things that I was holding on to in case I would use them later, such as cardboard. You may have things from old hobbies that you don't even need anymore, and they could be great to donate to charities or schools. I love books, and I've managed to reduce the amount of books that I have lying around by using my Kindle most of the time now. Some books are sentimental to me, I still remember when I first read them, but unless I feel like I'm going to refer back to a book, it doesn't really make sense to me to keep it anymore. That book could be passed on to a new owner. I tend to hand most of my books onto family members or give them to charity shops. Next up, my tech drawer, which is out of hand. See if you have any old phones, iPads, cameras or laptops that you no longer use. Again, maybe you can sell them, donate them or give them to a family member. I also had so many chargers and wires, most of them I wasn't even sure what they were there for. So I decluttered this cupboard to ones that I just use. To make it even tidier, I also use little bags to keep wires in so that this cupboard wouldn't be as messy as it was before. I like to have set items in set places. Somehow a lot of my cables had ended up in my yoga box, so I put them back inside my tech drawer and kept this corner just for yoga related items. Moving on to the kitchen, it's time to declutter things like pots, pans, plates, bowls and mugs. There's 2 of us here, so whilst we don't need too much, we also wouldn't want to have just 2 of everything, as that would feel really limited for when we have guests over or if I have the dishes to do still. I reorganised this drawer to separate pots and pans, and I stacked the pots together and kept the lids separate, which gave me way easier access to them. I then went through my spice drawer and I tried to reduce the amount of space things were taking up. So for example, I had 3 boxes just for tea, which felt so unnecessary. I also for some reason had just thrown my spices in, which created such a mess. So I cleaned up this drawer completely because there was spice everywhere, and then I lined up my spices in the order by which I use them most. I went through my utensil drawer just to check if there's anything that I don't use that could be given away. Next up, I went through food items, including snacks, condiments, sauces, and even vitamin tablets. This gave me the perfect chance to wash each shelf properly, which I'm so glad that I did because there were some spillages. Finally, I cleared out the cupboard under the sink and I ordered items so that things at the front were the things that I use the most. I feel like anything that you don't use every single day should be stored in cupboards rather than on the kitchen worktop. The less that's on the worktop, the easier it is to clean, and I find it's more enjoyable to cook if everything looks clean and tidy. On day 4, I decluttered the bathroom. I went through all medications, skincare items, hair care products, and personal care items, and I threw out anything that was expired. I also reduced packaging where I could, so I organised things into one box rather than having 3 boxes of the same thing. It became much more easier to organise. I put similar items such as hairbands all into one bag, so again this cupboard could be more easily maintained. I like to try and keep similar items together such as skincare products and hair products, and to be honest with you, I still feel like we have way too many products and I'm thinking I probably need to give more things away. Once again, I only like to leave things on the sink counter if they're things that I use every single day, like toothbrushes, otherwise I feel like it's unnecessary clutter. We store our towels in our storage cupboard, so I gave those a quick check to make sure they're still nice enough to use, and I also think it's good to have a place where you can store things like extra toilet paper so it's out of the way. We all have our Monica Geller messy cupboards or drawers, so on day 5, this is what I decided to declutter. I feel like we all have that place where we just dump receipts, souvenirs, proof of returns, keys, and any miscellaneous items. A lot of these things we never actually use or need, so it's time to just be savage and get rid of as much as possible. I have so many cluttered drawers, and a lot of them were actually really hard to open, which was not a good sign. I'm actually really considering selling this table altogether because I feel like it just tempts me to store things unnecessarily. On day 6, I had a digital declutter, which I think is so important as we occupy the digital space almost as much as our living one. I first went through all of my devices and deleted apps that I don't use on a regular basis. I know there are so many apps that can simplify just about everything, but it doesn't mean that we need all of them. I deleted any photos that I no longer need. I had so many unnecessary screenshots on my phone which I got rid of, and I also deleted any duplicate photos. I don't know why we take the same photo multiple times, but we definitely don't need all of those photos. I also organised all of my files on my laptop. I use a hard drive for a backup, which is a nice easy option for data management, but you might have a cloud system. And instead of just throwing everything on there, organise them with folders. So I have various folders for things like YouTube, photos, and everything else systematically organised by year and month. This is a great time to clear out your desktop, especially since it's the first thing that we see when we log in. So create folders and delete any files that you no longer need. I went through my phone contacts and I also deleted anyone who I hadn't spoken to in over 5 years or people who I knew I wouldn't contact again. I also unfollowed people on social media who I don't interact with or whose content I no longer get value from. Finally, I went through my inbox and I deleted any emails that I no longer need and unsubscribed to any emails that I no longer want to receive, especially marketing emails. Finally, on day 7, we move on to the car. I know your car probably isn't a place that you think of decluttering, but it's crazy how much crap we end up accumulating in it. Funnily enough, I don't actually own a car, so I filmed my husband clear out his instead. We got rid of things like receipts and food items and made sure the glove compartment had things that we actually needed, such as my husband's glasses, tissues and face masks. As well as the glove compartment, it's time to clear out the boot, which had so many random things like paperwork, food and even clothing items. He got rid of anything that he didn't need and then organised the rest of it into a box. I think this is a really good idea. I don't know where he got the box from, but I think it's such a great way to keep everything nice and tidy, and it maintains the space for when you actually need to use your boot. So as I said earlier, living in a flat makes this a lot easier. You might have loads more rooms than I do, so you might need a few extra days to do this. But it's just a case of breaking it down into something more manageable. I already feel way more mentally free now that my space is decluttered, and I think that's a great feeling to go into the new year with. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next one.